I am now recording. Is my door locked? I think so, but let me check. Yes, door is locked. Locked and loaded. Alright, well, welcome back. We began reading Bad Girls Don't Die. And we left off where, well, we come to meet Alexis, who lives a miserable teenage life. Everyone is so edgy here. I think this book is a product of its time. I feel like, when was it, 2009? Yeah, I think 2009. Yeah, 2009, I feel like early 2000s. Well, not early 2000s, like late, well, just the 2000s. There's a lot more, I don't know, punk and emo and, just a lot of, cliques and stuff. I don't know. I haven't been to a high school in, ever. So, I don't know if it's still like that. I'd like to think so. That there were many cliques and it's not just, changed dramatically. But yeah, Alexis has a sister, and she is acting very, very weird. Alright. They're just groups of friends. Well, yeah, but cliques as in there were the preppy kids, the cool kids, the grunge, punk, emo kids. Of course they were all friends, but I don't know. Maybe I just paid attention to high school, to my environment, unlike someone. Just kidding. I kind of felt like at my school it was very exclusionary. Where the cool, popular kids hung out, where the nerds hung out. I mean, it's not fiction, but for me it was pretty close. I don't know about you. Maybe you were sort of popular, so you're just I don't know. Maybe you were the popular one, and that's why you never noticed. You went to a fancy school, I feel. You went to an academy. I went to a high school where it specifically stated it was a high school. Yours was a fancy high school academy. Also, uh, your school was mainly like art, like mostly artsy. Didn't you say that too? Yeah, but you didn't have any major sports teams. You only had what, lacrosse or whatever that is? So your school was more on the artsy side than other high schools. You cannot argue with my logic. That's probably why you don't feel like you had cliques and stuff, because, yeah. Though I could be wrong. Yeah, but did you ever have like a football team? Come on. Football team, baseball team. Yeah, then so you've never had actual like jocks. I mean, you could say girls volleyball is like jocks, but like you haven't experienced like football, soccer, baseball, jocks. Which really dominated at my school. Like they were popular. Yeah. But at my school, the jocks weren't nice. So maybe that's what sets my school, and your school apart. Also, you come from a very nice neighborhood, and like, it looks like your high school is like really nice. Yeah, that wasn't the case with my school. My school was already, well, is pretty run down. Now I think you're just trying to be like, okay, there were a few fights, but like, it's okay. Like, at physical fights? Were there physical fights? Because my school had a few physical fights. Okay, that's pretty extreme. But that's like weird extreme. I don't know, Chandler. I think you just got lucky with your high school. Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, I think you just got lucky with your school. Yeah, my school environment was not very nice. Yeah, yeah, you probably just got lucky with your school. There's no way you could try and tell me otherwise. Like, yeah, there's no. I genuinely think you just got lucky with your school. Because people in my high school were mean in front of other people. They were not nice. Literally not nice. Uh, the hell? Yeah, so did I. And they were still not nice. So I think you just got lucky with your school, Chandler. Mm, no. And I think you have to take into account where the high schools are. Because you're from like a very nice part of town, or you live in a nice community, and your school is in a nice community. My school was already run down. They were building new buildings for the school, but it was still pretty not okay. And the city where I'm from, most of it, a good chunk of it is, I don't want to say ghetto, but it looks that way. And there's only like nice ritzy parts of that city. Where you live, there is not one bad part. Not one. You cannot convince me any otherwise. So you have to take that into account too. Maybe if you went to that other high school, I'm not gonna say the name of the high school, but the not the one, not the Catholic one, but the other one. Uh, the one that how do I describe it without? But you know that other high school that's near your house. Yeah. If you were to have gone to that one, I think you would have seen how bad high school can get. But no, you got lucky. I guess in a way, yeah. But I think it's mostly the school that's the part. The yeah, yeah. It's just sorry, you guys. We're just talking about high school and how we think it was like. Just the school is mean. Yeah. Yeah, but Chandler, you got lucky with your school. You could have qualified for the other school. Yeah, I think probably because you live so close to that area. You have like you have three high schools near you. So you could have easily, well, one was a Catholic one, so maybe you would have had to have to apply. No, you had to apply for that one. So two that you could, you know, possibly get into. You got into the nicer one, but you could have also qualified for the other one, which is not good. So you chose the nicer school, or your parents chose the nicer school, which I'm not saying is a bad thing. I mean, good. Who knows what have happened? What would have happened if you had gotten to the other school? It's the nicer. Yeah, it's the nicer one. Shit, man. Yeah, man. Dude. Okay, sorry I'm taking so long to read, but it's just like when I am class of 2014, my little brother, he's class of 2017, he went to the high school that I graduated from for the first year for a freshman, but he was having a lot of trouble there. And there was this new academy, like right up the hill from like where I live, and it was pretty fucking new, and it had academy in the name, but you had to apply there. So he applied there, he got in, and fucking that school was fucking nice. Just like so goddamn nice. So nice. I mean, he had to work hard for that school because it had like a different grading system, and it was like weird, but it was kind of cool at the same time. But my god, when we went, because I had to pick him up a few times or drop him off a few times, and uh, just it looks so nice. And it was like on top of like a hill, so you would see like it just had a nice fucking view, and it was just really nice. And yeah, it had academy in the name, but he had to actually apply for it to go to that school. Uh, but yeah, I remember going to his graduation, or even before his graduation, for him to get like some stuff or whatever. from the school to senior year, and I just remember just being in awe. Oh my god, it was so nice. That school was so nice. I wish I would have gone there. But no, I went to the school that I went to. Yeah. Alright. I think we not wasted, but we spent enough time on this. And conclusion is that Chandler, listening boy number 1, got lucky with his high school or academy, and everyone at school liked each other, which is like, wow, that never happened in my school. So that's the bottom line. Cannot convince me otherwise. But yes, let's get on to the story. The story of this miserable teenager. Only took us 21 minutes to get over that. Yeah, no, yeah, like less than 20 minutes. But still. Okay. So, we are on to the next chapter, which is called Chapter 6. And there are no titles to these chapters, so it's just Chapter 6, 7, 8, 9, blah, 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 blah. I wish there were chapter names. That'd be fun. Alright. So, here we go. Chapter 6. Dinner at the Warren home. At best, an adventure in awkward silence, punctuated by an occasional screech of a fork on a plate. At worst, an apocalypse. That night, it seemed like we might be in for an easy ride. I was in the kitchen when Dad showed up with Chinese food from the Golden Happy Family restaurant, which is like a huge joke. I doubt they would let us eat their food if they knew how far we were from being a Golden Happy Family. Hey, he said. Hey, I said, turning away. Dad and I used to do all the father-daughter, yeah, Dad and I used to do all the father-daughter groups and camping trips and all that. But as I got older, we stopped hanging out. Sometimes it feels like he'd rather spend all his time watching football and forget he even has a family. But once in a while, yeah, but every once in a while, I miss the stuff we used to do together. He'd always made me laugh. Lately, he had this permanent sad dog expression on his face, like he wished we could still be buddies or something. And I was pretty sure he didn't know he was doing it. I couldn't even look at him. Like now, I stared at the floor instead. I talked them into extra fortune cookies, he said. I didn't want to see the please be my friend look in his eyes. Great, I said, and ducked out of the kitchen. He stood there with his briefcase in his hand, his jacket draped over his arm. It was like a little knife stabbing me in the heart, to think I was hurting his feelings. Oh well. Where's Mom? Casey asked, slinking into the dining room and sitting in her usual chair. Dad set the containers of food down in front of us. Off saving the world from a critical stapler shortage. I stuck my fork into a piece of pepper beef. For some reason, it doesn't bother me when Casey and I talk about her mom, but when Dad does it, it feels wrong. He's supposed to defend her, not make fun of her. Mom is a district manager for a big office supply company. She's been trying to make the jump to vice president for like 2 years, which means she's always at the office. And when she's not, she's grouchy because she can't stop worrying about being at the office. We spooned our food out inside. Yeah, we spooned our food out in silence. Casey's plate was mostly rice with the tiniest bits of kung pao chicken. She hates spicy food, but the rest of us eat it, and as usual, she just lets everybody steamroll her. It's like she thinks we won't like her anymore if she says what she really thinks, or that our parents will think she's bad like me. We always eat our fortune cookies first. I unwrapped mine and broke it in half, then read the slip out loud. Home is where the heart is. Casey shrugged, unimpressed, and unfolded her arms. You are a very trusting person. She balled it up and tossed it over her shoulders. These aren't even fortunes, Dad said. They're just sayings. He cracked his cookie open and looked at the little paper. Neither a borrower, neither a borrower or a excuse me. Neither a borrower nor a lender be. The front door slammed. Mom's heels clacked past us down the hall as she dumped her briefcase in the living room. She came back, sat down, and started serving herself. Well, look who's on time, Dad said. He picked up a fortune cookie and pretended to nod. Confucius say, paperclip's more important than family. Mom dropped her spoon with a clatter. Daryl, please don't start with me tonight. Dad shrugged and went back to his food. I get to see the homecoming parade on Friday. Oh no, I get to go see the homecoming parade on Friday, Casey said. That's interesting, Dad said, completely. Yeah, that's interesting, Dad said, completely uninterested. Who's Surrey playing in the game? All eyes on me. Oh, please, I said. You're kidding, right? Like I care. It wouldn't hurt you to show a little school spirit, Mom said, as if she were a fan of high school football. Mom can take a simple observation. Mom can take a simple observation, such as saying that it wouldn't hurt for a person to show a little school spirit, and say it in such a way that she might as well be saying, it wouldn't hurt you to stop clubbing those baby seals. I think they're playing West Hardy, Casey chirped. Aren't they? I have no idea, I said, even though there were about 100 trees worth of Go Eagles beat the West Hardy Wolverines posters plastered around campus. Are you going to the dance? Mom asked. Somewhere deep down inside, she held on to the hope that one night I'd show up with my brown hair black. Sorry, I always want to say black for some reason. Somewhere deep down inside, she held on to the hope that one night I'd show up with my brown hair back, a pack of preppy friends in tow, and turn into Team Princess Barbie, homecoming court, star tennis player, like she'd been in high school. Oh yeah, I said. My only problem is trying to decide who to go with. The captain of the football team or Zac Efron. If you went, I bet you could be the homecoming queen, Casey said. I almost said something rude, but then I saw her shining eyes and how a hint of a smile turned her lips up at the corners. She really meant it. I need a fairy godmother, I said. Casey laughed. You'd need a miracle, Mom said, down to her plate. Then she glanced up in surprise. If we were on a sitcom, she would have said, did I say that out loud? And the canned laughter would have kicked in. Silence sank over us. The only sounds were chewing and Mom's knife sawing through her chicken. My mother uses a knife and fork on foods that were never meant to be eaten that way. I personally think a psychologist would have a lot to say about it. Casey, I don't think a plate full of rice is an acceptable meal, Mom said suddenly. Casey ducked her head down as Mom spooned a heaping serving of spicy beef onto her plate. She doesn't like that stuff, I said. This has nothing to do with you, Alexis, Mom said. Tell her you don't want it, Casey, I said. Casey was tracing figure eights in her food. She clearly didn't have the least intention of eating any, but she didn't protest. Mom let the subject drop. I think she felt like she'd done her motherly duty, and now she could go on with her life. She stuck a final forkful in her mouth and pushed her chair away from the table. Sorry to eat and run, she said. I have a bunch of reports to look over. We have a consultant coming in tomorrow, and I need to brush up on some quarterlies out of the sales department. She says this stuff as it means anything to us. I'll be in my bedroom. Knock if there's an emergency. Mommy? Casey said suddenly. I need to talk to you. Mom looked only slightly concerned. Is everything okay? I need help with a project. Casey stared down at her food. It's for school. Can we talk about it later this week? No, Casey whined. I don't have very much time. Mom sighed. Look, Case, I'm totally swamped. Maybe Alexis can help you. Hey, I said, I have my own stuff to do. But it's extra credit, Casey said, the holy grail of middle school academics. Then your father can help you. Dad was reading the sports page at this point. He looked up, bewildered. What? I'm going to Jim's to watch baseball tonight. Dad didn't grow up in Surrey. Yeah, Dad didn't grow up in Surrey, Casey said. It needs to be someone who grew up in Surrey. Mom looked around helplessly. I don't know what to say, sweetie. I wish you'd come to me sooner. You should have sent me an email. You should have sent me an email. Oh my God. Nobody likes me, Casey said, staring down at her plate, which was overflowing with food she couldn't eat. Don't be silly, Dad said in his best dad voice. Then he looked at his watch. Better hit the road. Don't wait up. He hopped out of his chair, kissed Casey on the top of her head, and that's the only way I care about children. Oh my God, totally. God, talk about momaholic or workaholic mom. Excuse me. Yeah, he hopped out of his chair, kissed Casey on the top of her head, and patted me on the shoulder, which made me squirm. The only thing worse than parents who don't pay any attention to you is parents who pat you on the shoulder on their way out the door. He didn't say goodbye to Mom, but she didn't seem to notice. She was staring down at Casey. "Tell you what," Mom said. Casey looked up, a glimmer of hope in her eyes. "If you can promise me that you'll use your day planner and write down all of your assignments and let me know in advance when you need help, I'll help you out with this extra credit. I'll help you out with this extra credit." Casey perked right up. "I promise," she said. "I'll go get the questions." Mom's face fell. "Oh, Casey," she said. "I didn't mean tonight. Sweetie, there's just no way I can do it tonight." I had to turn away so I didn't see Casey's expression. "We need to work on our planning skills," Mom said. It was the kind of thing she would say to one of her underlings at work, but in a sad voice of the disappointed mother. Mom shot Casey a regretful look and then walked out. Well, Casey is possessed, but right now she's not possessed in this chapter. But she will be possessed and very mean in the coming chapters. Spoiler alert. Yeah, she's sweet when she's not possessed. Uh-huh. Yeah, sure. Yeah, Mom shot Casey a regretful look and then walked out. Her footsteps thumped the stairs and the bedroom door closed. It was just my sister and me. "Hey," I said. "I grew up in Surrey. Do I count?" She looked up at me, her eyes heavy and dull. "Why don't you get your questions? I can take care of myself," Casey said, shoving her plate away and laying her head down on the table. A fat tear rolled down over her nose and landed on her sleeve. Feeling stung, I stood up out of my chair and headed upstairs, trying to figure out why that sentence seemed to drill right into me. Oh yeah, it was what I'd said to Carter in the clinic. And that is the end of that chapter. On to chapter 7. Chapter 7. I went into my room and sat down on the bed, facing the door. I hang out with ghosts and demons. They like me. No one else likes me. No one else wants to help me except for ghosts and demons. Yep. Okay. Chapter 7. I went into my room and sat down on the bed, facing the door. I was restless. Part of me wanted to let my sister cry it out. I can't be Mother Teresa all the time, you know. She didn't want my help. Fine. Let her work through her issues on her own. Right. So I wouldn't look for her. I sat in silence for a minute. Okay, I grabbed my camera. Here was the plan. I would go out and take a few pictures, and if I happened to find Casey, I might talk to her, depending how I felt at the time. I slipped the camera strap around my neck and headed out into the hallway, making a lot of noise so she would know where I was. The dining room was empty. Casey? I called quietly, stepping into the dark living room. No answer. I went back and I went back to check the kitchen. Maybe she was sitting. Okay. Yeah, I went back to check the kitchen. Maybe she was sitting on the floor in the corner, eating ice cream out of the carton. It's been known to happen. Nope. I opened the garage door. Case? I heard a thump below my feet. The basement. I'm no fraidy cat, mind you. I'm very open-minded about snakes, clowns, airplanes, and many other things that scare the bejesus out of most people. But I don't like the basement. In fact, Mom doesn't like it either. It's the one thing we agree on. Going down there is highly discouraged on the basis of Mom's having found a nest of black widows a nest of black widows 2 years earlier. The spiders were long gone, and the exterminators, who dutifully show up the third Thursday of every month, claim that they've never been back, but it's still off limits. I can't say I blame Mom. Knowing my luck, I'd find the one black widow strong enough to resist the chemicals, and I'd find it with my bare foot. The basement door is right down the hall from the kitchen. I stood outside it for a long minute, staring at the doorknob. I really, and I mean really, had no desire to open it and go down those stairs. But if that's where Casey was, I turned the knob and pushed the door open, waiting for an enormous, hairy arachnid to swing down and jump on my face. It didn't happen. Maybe they'd all jumped onto Casey, and the path was clear for me. Sam. I took a step down, flipping the light on and closing the door behind me. I would never close the door behind me. No. I'd let the door stay open. That does not sound pleasant. I would never, ever, in a million years, if I had a basement and it was off limits because it was creepy and scary, and you were, like, I was afraid of it. If I was her, I would not close the door. No. No. Just no. Not happening. Not happening for me. Yeah, but I took a step down, flipping the light on and closing the door behind me. There was a single light bulb glowing pathetically over the stairs. Of course, it's always a single light bulb, like on a string. Of course. Yeah, there was a single light bulb glowing pathetically over the stairs, and everything beyond that melted into a smudgy blackness, punctuated by shapes caught in the faint moonlight streaming through one tiny window. Yeah, punctuated by shapes caught in the faint moonlight streaming through one tiny window. The air was stale and stuffy. It made my head ache the same way a really humid day does. But I didn't see any spider webs in my path, so I kept going. Casey? I whispered. My voice sounded hoarse. No answer. The room was shaped like a U, with a center wall dividing the two sides. I thought I heard something on the other side of the wall. Casey, are you down here? Still no answer, but this time I heard a definite sound. I went around the U as far as I could go. I went around the U as far as I could go and still be standing in a patch of light. I'm not afraid of the dark, but I wouldn't say I love it. I was tempted to turn back. Even if my sister was down here, she clearly wasn't interested in company. Besides, who's to say the noise was Casey at all? It was probably gophers, or huge rabid sewer rats. I was a nanosecond away from making tracks back upstairs when I heard a muffled sniffle. Even huge rabid sewer rats don't sniffle to attract their prey. Casey? I said, trying to sound no nonsense. No nonsense? I've never... Hold on. Yeah, I've never heard that phrase before. Oh. Oh, okay, I get it now. I get what it's trying to... I get it. I get it. Yeah, I got it. I was just like, that's a really weird phrase for me. But now it's like making more sense. But I was just like, wait, no nonsense. Yeah. But yes. Casey? I said, trying to sound no nonsense. Where are you? Down here, she said. Down where? Under the card table. Naturally. I have a flashlight, she said, and a weak yellow spot of light illuminated the cement floor ahead of me. I followed its path to the corner. Then Casey shined the beam on her own face, which was puffy and wet with tears. Come on, Case, I said. Come back upstairs. She shook her head furiously. No, she said. I'm never going back up there. Never? Her head bobbed in the darkness. Where are you going to go to the bathroom? She sighed. I mean it, Lexi. So do I. I use the guest bathroom. That's upstairs. I reached over and took the flashlight from her, shining it around the room. Maybe there's a bucket around somewhere. Yeah, maybe there's a bucket around somewhere. She sighed a sigh that was way too big for someone who hasn't even started high school yet. I decided to give her a second to be alone with her thoughts, so I shined the flashlight around looking for spiders. Just because we made it that far without being bitten didn't mean they weren't planning their attack strategy. I kept my eyes out for the shiny blueberry-like body of a black widow. Oh god, what the fuck? I had like a spooky moment just now. I think it was just my hair falling in front of my face. But it was still pretty fucking freaky and scary. Yeah, I had it because I have my pillow vertical. And I think it was like up on my pillow and then it just came down. I felt like something dropped on my head. Man, this book is already scaring me. How rude. Okay. So, I decided to give her a second. Wait, no. Yeah, I decided to give her a second to be alone with her thoughts, so I shined the flashlight around looking for spiders. Just because we had made it that far without being bitten didn't mean they weren't planning. Hold on. Nice. That was just my brother. Okay. Just because we made it that far without being bitten didn't mean they weren't planning their attack strategy. I kept my eyes out for the shiny blueberry-like body of a black widow. I didn't find one. I didn't see any bugs at all. I did find shelf after shelf of everyday items that should have been thrown away long ago. But Mom will save anything. She even saved the boxes of other people's rubbish that were in the house when we moved here. Dad and I are much neater, but we know better than to try and toss any of Mom's precious garbage. Excuse me, stuff. Lexi. Uh, yeah, Lexi, Casey whispered. Will you tell me a story? A story. My 13-year-old sister wanted to hear a story. I felt a sinking feeling in my stomach. I didn't know what to say. She sensed my hesitation. My brain is stuck. I need to change the channel. Her hand grabbed my arm. Please, she whispered. A story? I repeated, hoping she would pick up from my tone of voice that it was kind of strange. It was kind of a strange request. Stories are for little kids. I don't care. A short one, about anything. There's a girl who lives on a farm in black and white, and then one day her house gets caught in a tornado, and she wakes up surrounded by midgets and everything is in color. I've heard that one. She said. Her voice sounded tired and strained. And you're not supposed to say midget. It's mean. Oh, Casey. She started to cry again. Please, Lexi, please. Casey had been normal once, had done normal kid things. She'd been bold and funny and stood up for herself. And now she was just coming apart at the seams, sitting under a card table in the basement, talking to her dolls, making a request a 6-year-old would make. Maybe I was an enabler. Instead of coddling her, I should tell her to make more friends at school, to do her own homework, or take a failing grade. Not stand up for her anymore. And definitely 100% not tell her a story. Once upon a time, I began, surprising both of us. There was a man and a woman who lived in a little shack in the country next to a river. let me start again. Once upon a time, I began, surprising both of us. There was a man and a woman who lived in a little shack in the country next to a river. My voice was hard and shaky. I took a deep breath. Casey was silent, afraid to say anything, probably in case it would make me stop. But I didn't want to stop. I felt more of the story welling up inside me, like a breath that needed to be exhaled. They were young and poor, so poor that some nights they didn't have enough food to eat, but they loved each other so much that they didn't even notice. Casey drew in a quivering breath. I shined the flashlight around, making squares of light as I spoke. I moved the beam so fast that sharp glowing lines seemed to burn themselves into my brain. But the man worked really hard, and before long, they were doing well enough to build themselves a house. I stared at the basement ceiling. Wood rafters. I stared at the basement ceiling. Wood rafters. Some that looked like 100 years old, and some newer ones, in crisscrossing rolls of metal pipes. So he built the biggest house in the whole country, big enough to show their neighbors how rich they were. They had a huge oak tree in the front yard, and they built a swing on it. And on nice nights, they would sit outside and swing together. And when it was cold, they lit a fire and stayed inside. I could see it so clearly in my head. It was our house and our oak tree. Ooh, this is some spooky shit, y'all. And I could see the man and the woman in their old-fashioned clothes, walking around, coming in through the front door, sitting in the back room with a fire in the fireplace. How did they meet? Casey asked. They met. My eyes trailed the line of a thin pipe snaking around the edge of the room. They met in college. How long ago is this supposed to be? Casey said. Ladies in fairy tales don't go to college. This one did, I said. They met in class and they fell in love. He was sitting at the desk closest to the door when she walked into the classroom. She was all alone. After class, he waited and spoke to her. He asked if she knew where the Remington building was. And she did, because her father... Lexi? I blinked. How long had I been lost in thought? Yeah, that whole little paragraph that I just read just now was italicized. She was thinking it. She didn't say it. Yeah, I blinked. How long had I been lost in thought? And more important, where was this coming from? I'd never so much as daydreamed any of this before, but the words formed themselves. It felt like I was telling Casey the plot of a movie I just watched earlier that day. The details, everything was right there. I just knew all of it. They got married? She prompted. The words pushed out of my mouth before I had a chance to think. So after they'd been married a while and built their house, they had a baby girl. And the mom stayed home to raise her. And the dad worked but spent all his free time playing with her and teaching her about animals and music. And the other kids in the neighborhood were always around. You said they were way out in the country, Casey said, almost reluctantly. But the kids in town liked the daughter so much they walked miles just to be with her. And she made tons of friends and was everybody's favorite person to hang out with. She was like a little angel. She wore fancy dresses with bows and lace, and she had blonde hair and a round face with cheeks that turned pink when she went out in the cold. I could see the girl in my head as clearly as if I were looking at a photo of her. She ran She ran down the stairs. She ran down the upstairs hallway and into what was now Casey's room. 3 little friends running after her. She loved to sit at the window and look out at the lane that led to town, waiting for her father to come home. What were their names? Who? 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 Her question jolted the image out of my mind. The basement seemed to be getting warmer, and what had been the faint beginning of a headache was starting to pound. The man and the woman. Well, her name was... I gazed around the room, and then it came to me. Her name was Victoria, and the man's name was Robert. And they all had beautiful exotic green eyes, Casey said. Why does that matter? I asked. Because I like green eyes, and they're running out. Soon all that will be left is brown and blue ones. There's nothing wrong with brown eyes, I said. Or blue ones like ours. But the eyes that popped into my head were Carter's. Yeah, we're Carter's. I know, Casey sighed, but still. In my head, I saw the little girl dancing down the upstairs hallway. She stopped and turned to look at me. I think I know why I like this book. Because it was about ghosts and dead people in their lives and stuff. I live for this shit. I like paranormal stuff like this. It's so cool. So cool. Yeah. In my head, I saw the little girl dancing down the upstairs hallway. She stopped and turned to look at me. She did have green eyes. I didn't want to admit that Casey was right. So, where was I? All the girls came from town out to play with me. That word, me, swooped in at me. Made me catch my breath. Yeah. Wait. Yeah, so where was I? All the girls from town came out to play with me. That word, me, swooped in at me, made me catch my breath. Oh, sorry, I keep on reading it from the wrong person. Let's just start from right here. Yeah, I didn't want to admit it. I didn't want to admit that Casey was right. So, where was I? All the girls from town came out to play with me. That word, me, swooped in at me, made me catch my breath. I looked at her. I never said the girl was you. Who else could be? Who else could it be? I don't know, I said, looking up at the pipes again. Every time I looked, there seemed to be a new one winding around the room. It wasn't you, though. But as the picture of the girl faded back into my head, I could see a slight resemblance. The girl had the same soft caramel color hair as Casey, and the same sweet, soft eyes, although the girls were green and Casey's were blue. It's my story, she said. Yeah, but it isn't you, I said. How do you know? Because I can see her when I close my eyes. That's how I know. I just know, okay? I I want it to be me, Casey said. She clenched her teeth, making her jawbone jut out near her ears. You don't have to be a jerk about it. I started to stand up. Forget it, she said. Forget it. It's not me, okay? All right. I took a deep breath. So anyway, when she turned 10 years old, the little girl got a beautiful doll for her birthday. Casey fell silent. One pipe above our heads was covered in small red painted marks. A sloppy job. I could even tell what the marks were supposed to be. And when she took it to school, all the other kids got jealous because they didn't have anything nice like that. But she loved her doll so much that she talked about it all the time. And eventually she started taking it everywhere and acting like the doll was talking back to her. And the other kids were so freaked out that they stopped coming to see her. Gradually, it got worse and worse. They were mean to her at school and called her names and stuff. The red painted pipe was so old the surface was flaky, and the end I could see was open, not connected to anything. The other end, I followed the pipe with my eyes and let deeper into the room, back toward the darkest corner. She came home from school one day, gray and pale, and said she didn't want to go back. Her mother asked why, but the girl refused. Okay, all of this I'm telling, yeah, this part, I'll tell you when it stops, but this part is all italicized, which means that it's just in her head. She came home from school one day, gray and pale, and said she didn't want to go back. Her mother asked why, but the girl refused to tell. She was ashamed to say that the children in town were making fun of the whole family now, saying the mother was unfeminine for going to college, saying that they were vulgar show-offs for building such a big house for just 3 people. And the kids just got more and more suspicious, I said. Pretty soon they started telling everyone in town that the little girl was crazy, that she thought her doll was alive. The doll was her only friend. She sat in her bedroom staring at it, wishing it would wake up and speak to her. And that part was italicized. So one day she wandered too near the school. All the town kids started teasing her. She ran away, but they chased her and grabbed her doll, and one of the girls took a pair of scissors and cut her hair off. The girl? No, the doll. Casey breathed in sharply. A vicious doll haircutting was probably the worst fate she could imagine. So she tried to stay away from them, but she never took her doll with her anymore. But the next time they saw her, they chased her home, and she was so scared that she climbed up the oak tree to get away from them. Wasn't her mom home? No, I said. What happened? The kids saw her in the tree. It was like the words were being planted in my brain all by themselves. I could see it unfolding in my head. The girl climbing the tree, a pack of dusty, rowdy children shouting up at her, making fun of her, telling her she was going to tear her fancy dress. And they started yelling. I forced myself to stop. These were words Casey didn't want to hear. It would just increase the crazy quotient in our house, which frankly didn't need any boosting. I tore my eyes away from the pipes and spread my fingers flat on the ground. Then the girl's mother came home, saw all the rude kids and scared them away. But first she scared one of them so badly that she peed her pants, and none of the other kids ever talked to her again. That was a lie. Saying it made my throat hurt. Nice, Casey said. The knotted feeling in my chest grew looser. Yeah, well, that was the evil Megan Wiley, I said. The air in the basement was getting easier to breathe. As I went further from the story in my head, the words came out more smoothly. And the girl came down, and she and her mom had tea, and it was cool. She went back to school, and she was the most popular kid in her grade because her mom made the evil Megan Wiley pee her pants in front of everybody. And? And what? I stared into the corner where all the pipes seemed to end. And then? And then? I was done. My whole body was sore and tired, and I took that as a really good reason to get up and get ready for bed. And then nothing. She had all the bad town kids thrown in jail. I sighed. Happily ever after, the end. Wait, Lexi! What? What about the doll? Forget about the doll, I said. Let's go upstairs, okay? Casey's bright eyes still drilled into me. In the darkness, they looked strangely blank. I stared at her for a second, and the doll from my dream came out of my memory. Your sister is crazy. She took a deep breath. What? What? She asked, even though I hadn't said anything. Forget it, I said. Come on. I'll go first. Make sure the coast is clear. No point in both of us getting into trouble. Casey waited at the bottom of the stairs. I opened the basement door and crept out into the hall. All clear. I opened the door slightly. It's fine. Come up. When I went to the kitchen, I went to the kitchen, so if Mom came downstairs, we'd look innocent. I got myself a glass of water, sat at the table, and slowly sipped it. 5 minutes later, I noticed with a start that the glass was empty, and Casey still hadn't appeared. I went back to the basement door and opened it. Case? I asked. No answer. Just a rustling sound from the corner. I took a slow step down. The blood in my veins suddenly electrified. I went around the U with little chills running up my spine. A Casey-sized shadow was way back in the darkest corner of the room, near the long-abandoned tool bench, making clanking noises as it dug through the piles of discarded junk. Werewolf, my brain said. Zombie. I snatched the flashlight off the card table and switched it on. Hold on, let me get some water. Yeah, I snatched the flashlight off the card table and switched it on. What are you doing? I asked. My sister looked up at me, squinting into the beam of light. Oh, hi. Answer me, I said. What are you doing? I heard something, she said, wiping her hands on her pants. And then I thought I would see if I could find your ancestor report. Why would it be down here? She shook her head. I thought you moved your old file cabinet down here when you got the new one. No, they're both in my closet, I said. Now come upstairs. She started slowly through the sea of junk, using her left hand to steady herself. Are you holding something? I asked. What? She said. In your right hand. No. Are you? I sighed. Forget it. I'm going upstairs. The headachy, sleepy feeling was coming back. I wondered if maybe we had a toxic mold problem. As an afterthought, I pointed the light at the pipes on the ceiling. Now that I was standing up, I was close enough to see the red marks for what they really were. Skulls and crossbones. Dozens of them, stamped on sloppily. Nice, So glad to know we'd been breathing poison air all night. I climbed the stairs and went back to my spot at the kitchen table, drawing deep breaths to clear out my lungs. Casey followed me as far as the kitchen doorway. "Can you go get your ancestor report?" she asked. "Why don't you go get it?" "Yeah, why don't you go get it?" I asked. Look in the cabinet on the left, top drawer, 8th grade history, Miss Cardillo. Or Cardio. I'm gonna say Miss Cardillo. Casey nodded, then looked sheepish. Casey nodded, then looked sheepish. "Will you make me mac and cheese?" she asked sweetly, crinkling her nose. "Please? I'll do the dishes." I shrugged. I was feeling a little better. "Sure." She took a second, concentrating on something down to her right side, something hidden by the wall so I couldn't see it. "What is that?" I demanded. She froze and looked up, caught. "What's what?" "Whatever's in your hand." "I don't have anything in my hand, Lexi," she said. I stared at her and she gazed serenely back at me. Just to be a little mean, I clicked the flashlight on and shined it at her face. And maybe I was just tired or something, but her eyes, they were green. Vivid green. I couldn't think of anything to say. Never mind. "See you in a sec," she said, disappearing up the stairs. And that is the end of that chapter. We will go on to the next chapter, which is a continuation of... Oh, and it's no, it's not fairly short, but yeah, let's go to chapter 8. God, I feel like my throat is like already just like... When I was talking about the lump in the throat, I was just like, oh man. I don't feel like a lump in my throat, but I'm just like, man. I feel like I've been like talking for like long periods of time and like the back of my throat is getting like all strained. Like, you know, when that happens. Yeah. Kinda like that. Okay, well, on we go. So to the next chapter, which is chapter 8. Chapter 8. A few minutes later, Casey came hippity-hoppiting into the kitchen with the report in hand, singing to herself. She gave me a kiss on the cheek and sat down. She twirled a piece of her hair around a finger and flipped through the pages while I collected the dirty dinner dishes and put them in the dishwasher. Somebody had to clean up. Mom would be content leaving them until the weekend. My dad might have done it when he got home, but it gave me something to do while Casey read over my stuff and decided how much she could risk copying without getting caught. "Mom's grandma was born in Surrey?" Casey asked. "Is that what it says?" "Yeah," she said. "Then, yes." "Oh," she said, unfolding a big sheet of newsprint. "Your family tree's pretty." I glanced at it and remembered how the teacher was so impressed that she hung it on the wall. That was back when teachers still liked me. I'd better make a new one," she said, pushing her chair back from the table and skipping toward the stairs. Content with the clean kitchen, I took out a saucepan and filled it with water for the noodles. I set it on the stove and remembered that I hadn't wiped off the table. I went back to the dining room with a dish rag, and I looked out into the hallway. I went back to the dining room with a dish rag And when I looked out into the hallway, I saw that the basement door was open, just a crack. Casey must not have latched it all the way. I started toward it. As I approached, the door slowly opened a few more inches. Casey? I asked. Maybe she was messing with me. I had heard her thump up the stairs, but she could have sneaked back down. In theory. I could hardly force myself to take another halting half step. A cool puff of air seemed to move across my legs, and a faint, bitter smell drifted into my nose. Casey, I said in my best jokey voice, present yourself. I'm right here. I spun around to see Casey looking at me from the kitchen doorway. What are you doing? She asked. I turned back to look at the basement door. It was closed. Nothing, I said. I guess. Come help me, she said. I went back to the kitchen table and sat down. She'd brought a shoebox full of pens and markers and ghost. Oh man, today's the freaky shit. We're getting into the freaky shit. Okay. Yeah, I went back to the kitchen table and sat down. She'd brought a shoebox full of pens and markers and a giant piece of poster board. One nice thing about a mom who works in the office supply industry, you always have plenty of art supplies on hand. You do the trunk, she commanded, passing me a brown marker. I obeyed and found that drawing eased the fluttery, nervous feeling in my stomach. Sorry about what happened with Mom, I said. Casey shrugged. That's why I'm not ever having kids, I said. It sucks to have to pick between your job and your family. Besides, I can live without drooling rugrats hanging off me. Dude, for the moment, same. Yeah, besides, I can live without drilling rugrats hanging off me. She didn't even crack a smile. Mimi's mom stays home, right? I asked. And look how horrible Pepper turned out. So it's just as well. Casey sighed. I don't care. So if you don't hang out with Mimi, who do you eat lunch with now? What about Devin? I was really scraping the bottom of the barrel. Devin was best known as the kid who could name every Star Trek episode ever made, including all the spin-offs. I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, I don't want to talk about it, Casey said, looking away. A thought nagged at me. Case, I said, trying to keep my voice light. That day, did Mimi try to do something to one of your dolls? My sister's eyebrows furrowed. I don't want to talk about it. Yeah, well, I did. And I'm the big sister. Casey's eyes lit up. Look, time to put the noodles in, she said, pointing to the pot on the stove. The water bubbled enthusiastically in a roiling boil. My hands immediately turned clammy and cold. Casey, I said, I didn't turn the burner on yet. Her face went white. What's going on? I asked. Casey stared at the stove, then leaped off the stool and grabbed the pot by its handle. Cooking ghost. It's Cooking Mama, but ghost form. Yeah. Yeah, Casey stared at the stove, then leaped off the stool and grabbed the pot by its handle. I staggered backward, thinking for a moment that she was going to throw the hot water on me. Instead, she poured it in the sink and dropped the pot in too. She turned and stared at me, but it was as if she was looking but it was as if she wasn't really looking at me. Like I was a stranger who'd looked vaguely familiar. I don't understand, I said. Casey's wide eyes got wider. Something really weird is happening, I said. I thought about the story, the way it poured out of my mouth without permission, about the basement door swinging open, the cloud of cold air in the dining room. With the start, I remembered the lights we'd seen outside the night before. What could it be? Yeah, what could it be? I whispered. Casey wrinkled her forehead. Lexi, don't be mad, but I think maybe you're just tired, she said. No! The burner! The water was boiling and Lexi, she said, putting her skinny arm around my shoulder. I turned the burner on. But why didn't you say something? She swallowed. When you were in the dining room a minute ago. Yeah, but you need to relax, she said. You're getting yourself all worked up. I glanced around at the kitchen, which was lit warmly and smelled pleasantly of the spicy beef I'd just thrown away. Maybe you're right, I said. I know I am, she said. Now sit, finish the tree. I obeyed, feeling too bewildered to protest. I don't think I'm a great artist, but Casey seemed enthralled by the lines I drew. She leaned forward, her chin on her hands, and watched me. You're making me nervous, I told her. Sorry, she said, slumping back. I concentrated on the silhouette of the tree trunk, plump and shapely, with gentle curves and little hollows. I drew a stub of a branch that had broken off, and another spot where a fresh layer of bark almost covered the gash in the side of let me say that again. Yeah, I drew a stub of a branch that broke off, and another spot where a fresh layer of bark almost covered a gash in the side of the trunk. I was vaguely aware of Casey fidgeting across the table, making a click-click noise, but I could tell she was interested, but trying not to show it. Finally, I sat up and looked at my drawing. Wow. Click, click. It was totally different from anything I'd ever drawn. Usually I did well enough to get by in Pictionary, casual but effective line drawings. There was nothing casual about this tree. It was covered in details. Even the drawing style was somehow different. The lines looked like they'd been drawn by someone else. Just like the story had been told by someone else. Click, click. And suddenly I felt sick. Click, click. I pushed my chair away from the table and looked up at Casey. Stop! I shouted, scaring both of us. She paused mid-click, and her eyes widened with distress when she realized what she'd been doing. Opening and shutting the back cover of my camera. letting light spill in and expose the negatives. I'm sorry, she squealed as I yanked the camera from her hands and snapped the cover shut. Lexi, I didn't mean to. Don't talk to me, Casey. Let me say it again. I'm sorry, she squealed as I yanked the camera from her hands and snapped the cover shut. Lexi, I didn't mean. Don't talk to me, Casey, I said, or I will be forced to murder you. I rushed out of the kitchen and up the stairs. Casey followed me into the foyer, but kept a safe distance away, staring up at me, her mouth an O, her eyes red and streaming tears. I can't believe you, I called down to her, and then I went into my bedroom and slammed the door. Mom's voice came faintly from behind her closed door. Girls, stop yelling. I'm trying to work. I let out an angry grunt and smacked my pillow. A few minutes later, I heard Casey trudge by and close her door. I felt kind of bad, but not bad enough to go comfort her. Let her think about what she'd done. Alone. And that is the end of that chapter. Holy shit. Hold on. Little break. I'm so glad I muted this chat. 97 goddamn messages. I am muting this again. Okay. Alright. Okay. So, now we're on to the next chapter, which is chapter 9. Chapter 9. I didn't sleep well. Can you blame me? I kept having those falling dreams where you jolt yourself awake just before you hit the ground. After waking up and checking the clock every half hour or so at 5:30 a.m., I decided to get out of bed. I'd be sleep deprived, but at least I'd have time to work in the dark room. Walking to the tiniest guest room at the end of the hall. I tried not to think about my ruined film, which left plenty of mental space to think about all the other strange things that had happened the previous night. The hairs on the back of my neck prickled as I passed Casey's door. But when I reached the dark room, a sense of calm washed over me, a sense of well-being. As soon as I turned on the safe light, don't be too impressed, it's just a red light bulb, and snapped the black curtain into place to keep light from leaking through the cracks around the bathroom door. All thoughts of boiling water and unstable sisters and absentee parents melted away. A lot of people shoot digital pictures now, which is fine. It's just not for me. To me, taking digital pictures is like finding something, but working with film is like making something. Besides, I cherish the time I get to spend in the dark room, away from my family. It's a pretty decent setup. An old and larger, brought, bought by, bought used from the junior college, and a table Dad and I built over the bathtub to hold trays of chemicals. Rolls of film and finished prints hang to dry on the clothesline behind the table. What's funny is that when we moved in, the tub was already dotted with chemical stains, and we found darkroom supplies under the sink. So somebody else had had the same idea once upon a time. I guess a house like ours brings out people's creative tendencies, maybe in its own wacky way. Casey's doll collection could have been seen as an expression of creativity, not just a passive consumerist obsession. Which is uh, maybe in its own wacky way, Casey's doll collection could be seen as an expression of creativity, not just a passive consumerist obsession, which is what I call it when I want to get a rise out of her. I roll the film into the coiled silver cage and feel I rolled the film into the coiled silver cage and filled the cylinder with film developing chemicals. While that processed, I took care of my camera. I carefully took my camera apart and cleaned the lens. When the timer dinged, I unrolled the film and clothespinned it to the cord hanging over the tub. I turned Mom's old hair dryer. I turned Mom's hair dryer. I turned Mom's old hair dryer to cool and spent a few minutes drying the film off. It had to be totally waterless. Handling it when it was just mostly dry or a little tacky would ruin images. Next, I cut a long strip of film into rows of 5 frames and made a contact sheet. That means you lay the film right on the photo paper so that they're in contact with each other and get a whole page of little tiny black and white photos. You use that to choose the photos. You use that to choose the pictures you want to make larger prints of. You can't just print everything or you'll waste a ton of photo paper, and photo paper is expensive. Not every picture is worth blowing up. I hit the button and reached for the negative sleeve, then turned down and held the negatives in. I hit the button and reached for the negative sleeve, then leaned down and held the negatives to the light, expecting to see a whole lot of nothing after Casey's disastrous actions last night. A huge breath I didn't know I'd been holding escaped from my lungs. They weren't ruined. I got a piece of photo paper out from the triple sealed black bag under the sink and set the page of negatives down directly on it, then hit the expose button. The light shined on them for a few seconds, then went off. I grabbed the paper. I grabbed the paper and dropped it into the first ray of chemicals, the developer, which is where the images start to show up on paper. The paper. I love this stage, seeing what comes out first. I lifted the contact sheet out of the developer and put it into the next tray, the stop bath, which stops the emulsion from reacting to the developer chemicals. From there they go on into the fixer, which gets rid of any extra light sensitive materials left on the paper. And from there they go into a tray of cold water. Then they get inspected by me with my little magnifying glass. I set them on the enlarger and turned the timer as far as it would go. I leaned in to look at the photos. They were beautiful. You could see a black sky, a big white moon, and pinpricks of tiny stars. The house loomed in the foreground, glowing a kind of milky gray. The whole thing was slightly hazy, which I could assume was Casey's fault. Never mind that it was kind of never mind that it was a yeah, never mind that it was kind of a cool effect. I was still totally annoyed. Finally, I got to the pictures I'd tried to take of the strange light. The image was slightly shaky, thanks to my inability to stand completely still, but there was definitely something there. And the motion blur even helped a little. And the motion blur even helped a little. I leaned in for another look and noticed a little white dot in the frame, a circle of light that seemed to be floating near the house. Ghost orbs! Yeah, ghost orbs, man. I'd cleaned my lens right up. Yeah, a circle of light that seemed to be floating near the house. I'd cleaned my lens right before I went outside, but a spot of dust could have snuck in. Well, it was a good picture anyway, and I could fix that white dot if I enlarged it. The last couple of photos, the ones close to the end of the reel, were actually ruined. One picture was half clear and half overexposed. You could see just the bay window and the study, and part of Casey's bedroom window to bright before it faded to bright white. The mysterious glow near the tree was just barely distinguishable from the light leak. And of course, that was the only one where I'd managed to hold still enough. And of course, that was the only one where I'd managed to hold still enough that the picture wasn't blurred. I studied the blob of light. In this particular frame, I could see that it was I could see, yeah, in this particular frame, I could see that it wasn't completely shapeless. It was oblong and had stripes down sides, and toward the top, it got a little narrower and then rounded back out, and then rounded back out. It actually kind of looked like a really vague silhouette of a person, but that was impossible. Not only impossible, but silly too. If you stare at anything long enough, you can make yourself see whatever you want to see. And there was a huge speck on this one too, but it looked even bigger. You could see it clearly, a little sphere of light, smack in the middle of the frame. Well, you can't win them all. At least I'd managed to get a few eerie portraits of the house. Not bad for a role that could have gone to the great dark room in the sky. Alright. And now that's the end of that chapter. And now we go on to chapter 10. Chapter 10. I was on my way back to my room when I heard a noise from downstairs. Shuffle, 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 shuffle. It stopped abruptly. Gophers, the pipes, the house settling. Excuse me. As I turned toward my door, I glanced back at Casey's room. For the first time, I noticed a tiny bit of shining light through the crack. Her door was open. Only slightly, though. I craned my neck to see if I could see her outline under the covers. I couldn't tell, so I turned back around. She was behind me. I gave a little shriek and did that really embarrassing, terrified hand-wringing thing. Casey just looked at me, completely calm. It took me a second to catch my breath. What are you doing? Getting a drink of water. How did you get up the stairs without making any noise? She looked at me like I had a screw loose. Amoy wa mu shinderu. You were already dead. Sorry, you guys, we are weebs. We're weeaboos. We do weeb shit. But yeah, oh my waboo. She made it. Yeah, you were already dead. But yeah. How did you get up the stairs without making any noise? She looked at me like I had a screw loose. Socks, she said. She lifted her foot to show me. The underside was covered in a black coating of dirt in the shape of a foot. Those are filthy, I said. Something occurred to me. Did you just go outside? Casey looked puzzled. Why would you think that? I heard, I shrugged. Lexi, are you feeling okay? She studied me intently. I'm fine, I said. Okay, because last night you got a little... She considered carefully. Overexcited. I couldn't keep my cool any longer. Well, maybe if I hadn't had to follow you into the basement and then cook for you and do your homework and have you ruin my pictures. Oh, she said. Are they ruined? Let me say it again. Oh, she said. Are they ruined? There was only regret. There was no regret in her voice. Only mild curiosity. No, I replied. Lucky for you. Sorry, she said, her eyes wandering up to the ceiling. But you were acting really weird. It distracted me. Was I acting weird? The story, the tree, the basement door, the cold air, all things that, in light of early morning, seemed a lot more explainable than they had last night. Maybe a little weird. See you later. See you later, Casey said, patting away down the hall. Oh, I said, wait. She stopped and turned around. Do you need any more help with your report? She shrugged. It's cool. I finished it last night. Oh, good for you, I said. Can I see it? No, not right now, she said. It's 6:30. I nodded. Right. I hurried through my shower and getting dressed. No, it's mine. Yeah, exactly like that. No, it's mine. I hurried through my shower and getting dressed. For some reason, I was highly disinterested in seeing my sister again that morning. All this time, I thought Casey was kind of on the verge of something. And suddenly it hit me that what if, it wasn't her? What if it was me? Can you go crazy without knowing you're crazy? I mean, most crazy people do, right? See, times like these make you think you're real. See, times like these really make you wish you had a best friend. Someone you could go to and be like, am I nuts? And they would just tell you flat out. It's way too much to think about at 7:15 without even a Pop-Tart in my stomach. Mom was in the kitchen already, watching her coffee brew. She leaned against the counter, mesmerized. She didn't look up when I came in, which was totally okay by me. I got a glass of juice, stuck my Pop-Tart in the toaster, and dropped the plate onto the counter with a clatter. Then I had to stop and wait, and the kitchen was quiet except for the electric buzz of the toaster and the soft rhythmic bubbling of the coffee machine. Thanks for doing the dishes. I looked up in surprise to see Mom staring at me. And helping Casey with her schoolwork, she said. I shrugged. I was going I wasn't going to say anything, but I have a huge interview on Friday for a vice presidency. But if I don't get the job, she shook her head. I'm so tired, Alexis. I want to be more involved with you girls. My head swam. Yeah, but what would you do? Quit? She stared at the coffee pot. Then how would we afford... I let my voice trail off. Somehow it didn't seem to be the right thing to say. I laid my palm flat against the counter. Does Dad know? No, she said. I guess I have to talk to him about it. Will you tell Casey? Tell me what? We both jumped at the sound of Casey's voice. She stood in the doorway of the kitchen, clutching her report. Mom took a deep breath. Don't worry, Case. Right now, I think it should be between your father and I. And me. Yes, and you and Alexis too. And we'll promise, and we'll talk about it as a family if it becomes an issue. I promise. No, Casey said. Your grammar is wrong. Between your father and me. She walked to the sink and filled a glass of water. After drinking the whole thing in one long series of glugs, she set the glass down on the counter and looked at Mom, who had frozen in place. Just my opinion, but I don't think you'd make a great housewife. She glanced down at her watch. I have to go. I'll walk. She turned and left. Mom stood speechlessly by the counter, staring at the spot where Casey had been. All of the temporary closeness between Mom and me escaped out the door with Casey, making everything suddenly seem wrong, embarrassing. I reached over and flipped the toaster switch up, grabbing my half-cooked Pop-Tart out of its slot. I dropped it on my plate and walked out without another word. And that is the end of that chapter. Yeah, that is the end of chapter 10. Okay, I think this might be the last chapter. Okay. Alright. Chapter 11. I wanted to finish up at my locker before Lydia arrived to pick another fight with the cheerleaders. After the past 12 hours, I couldn't handle any more drama. So when the shadow fell over me as I searched for my copy of Their Eyes Were Watching God, I braced myself. Good morning, said Carter Bloom. My math textbook slipped out of my arm and landed on his foot with a painful sounding thud. The cheerleader tittered. Carter picked up the book and handed it back to me, an amused smile on his face. Sorry, I murmured. Eye for an eye, right? He said. Foot for forehead, no problem. Look, I said. I just kind of want to be alone. He nodded. Okay, no problem. He took a step back and looked around. I had hurt his feelings. I had a chance to take it back, to tell him I didn't mean it. But I didn't. Instead, I said, cool, thanks, and let him walk away. Then I turned back to my locker, trying to ignore the contemptuous stares of the cheerleaders. I slammed the door shut and walked past them. In the courtyard, I went right by the Doom Squad. No one even looked up. Not that I wanted to hang out with them, but it would have been nice if someone called me over. Whatever. Somehow I ended up in the library. I thought I'd be safe there. It's always empty. Today it was no different, except that right in my path, seated smack in the middle of one of the ancient, cracked orange vinyl left seats, was a single student. Carter. I sighed and walked over to him. Alexis Warren, you're stalking me, he said, his eyes wide. I swear I had no idea you'd be in here, I said. He smiled a twisted little smile. No, I'm flattered. He looked around, kind of disoriented, in, I hate to say, a very cute way. But I'll go. All of a sudden, he didn't seem like the worst company in the world. You were here first. He shrugged and reached for his bag. You can hang out if you want, I said. He was hoisting the bag over his shoulder. I would have to come right out with it. Stay, I said, my heart beginning to pound. Clear enough. He'd settled back against the worn sofa and smiled. I described your house to my mother, and she's horrified. She's dying to see it. I sat down on the love seat across from him. That's just what we need. Architects making fun of our home. He studied the leather tasseled zipper pull on his leather tasseled zipper pull on his bag. Obviously, you don't know anything about the art scene in Surrey. The worse something is, the more they like it. I had to laugh. He sounded like some character out of a movie from the 1940s, always having a smart comeback. He could almost be cute if he weren't such a Ken doll. Sorry I was rude before, I said. Which time? Oh, ha. I haven't been that bad. I didn't feel up to going into detail. He looked at the ceiling and held up his hand like in Hamlet, when Hamlet holds the skull. That is without a doubt the stupidest question ever asked in the history of humanity. He balled his hand into a fist as if he were crushing something. Sorry, I just needed to read some things again. Yeah, he balled his hand into a fist as if he were crushing something. I didn't say it like that, I said. He shrugged. That's how I remember it. It's what I always put in my blog anyway. I must have had I must have looked really horrified because he burst out laughter. He burst out laughing. I'm just kidding, he said. Really? You really are a politician, I said. Only it didn't come out as jokey as I meant it. In fact, it came out so unjokey that it sucked all the fun right out of the conversation. Way to go, Alexis. Carter was quiet for a moment, then gestured to my clothes. At least you remembered your red and white for school colors day. I looked down at the short-sleeved red t-shirt I'd layered over a long-sleeved white one. Oh no, I said, laughing. Oh no, I said, laughing. I swear I didn't do this on purpose. Your reputation, yeah. Your reputation is about to take a huge hit, he said. Carter, on the other hand, was proudly sporting an immaculate Surrey High sweatshirt. I think yours will be worse, I said, if any of your friends see you with me. He gave a little shrug. I think you might be worth it. Hearing that set my brain spinning into confused blankness. I tried to show with my face that I didn't attach any importance to what he'd said, but I just succeeded in raising my left eyebrow really high. He raised an eyebrow back and smiled. I'm just remembering the first time I ever saw you. On the TV show? I said. He shook his head. No, before that. It was my first day at Surrey. I had transferred 2 weeks into the school year in the middle of September. I was waiting for the office for my mom to sign some papers. I was listening to the secretaries, and they were all scandalized by some student who'd been caught putting bumper stickers that said gas guzzler on every SUV in the parking lot. Oh yeah, my proactive environmentalist phase. And then you came in, and the principal came out to meet you, and you told her you'd skipped her car because you knew she was on the waiting list for a hybrid. Yep, strangely enough, that didn't really change Mrs. Amos's view on the situation. He seemed to look off into the distance and smiled again. That was the first time. And the second time, how could I forget? He meant that stupid TV show. I'd actually rather you forgot, if you don't mind, he said. What are you talking about? You were brilliant, utterly amazing. You cut right through the drivel and made everyone else look stupid. And I'm not just saying that for the obvious reason. He smiled at me, his eyes squinting appraisingly. I said to myself, Carter, there's a girl that you need to knock down in the hallway sometime. Without thinking about it, I clammed up and sat back. What's wrong? Carter asked. I can't do this. What, take a compliment? I can't be me and hang out with you being you. I tried to think of a way to say it. I mean, you're nicer than I thought you would be, and it's cool about the architecture, but He leaned close to me and swallowed. What? He asked. His voice was low. I don't know, I said. Just say something real. Everyone always just tries so hard, and it all comes out the same. I just want someone to say something real. He broke his glance away from mine and looked at the carpet. Forget it, I said. I'm sorry, that was rude even for me. I'll go. I'm a ghost boy. Oh no. Okay, yeah. Uh, Let me start from a little back. He broke his glance away from mine and looked at the carpet. Forget it, I said. I'm sorry. That was rude, even for me. I'll go. I grabbed my backpack. I tried to kill myself last year, Carter said. My grip loosened and the bag fell back to the couch. And I had to transfer schools because my dad, he laughed bitterly. My dad is a psychiatrist, and if word got around, it would ruin his business. I opened my mouth and then closed it again without saying anything. And nobody here knows, Carter said quietly, looking into my eyes without blinking. Well, except you. I'm sorry, I said. Well, that's about as rich as it gets. Yeah, as soon as I read that, after reading aloud that last line, it was just like, oh, I forgot this was in the book. I'm sorry, I said. Was that what you were supposed to say when... Was that what you were supposed to say to someone who was suicidal? Don't be, he said. It's funny. I'm serious about Surrey's survey. I know you didn't mean to, but you really helped me. It made things a lot easier. Overnight, I had friends and something to do with my time. It was convenient. I aim to please after all. So, what else do you do? He asked. Besides, the TV appearances and the environmental terrorism. Nothing much, I said. We are back on the superficial stuff, but that was fine by me. One thing was certain. I'd think long and hard before I asked something. Yeah, yeah, one thing was certain. I'd think long and hard before I asked someone to get real with me in the future. Nothing, no sports, no arts and crafts. He leaned toward me. Oh, well, I really like photography. He cocked his head to the side. Really? I laughed. Yeah, really. I take black and white pictures. I have a dark room in my house. It's my civic duty to ask why you aren't on the yearbook staff, he said. I recoiled. Are you kidding me? He stared at me very seriously for a few seconds, and then laughed. Yes, I'm kidding. I know people on the yearbook staff. They're not your type. And I don't think I could sleep at night knowing I'd unleashed you on them. I exhaled. I exhaled. Carter knew how to keep a girl on her toes. So what do you photograph? He asked. Oh, Tell me something real. I killed someone weak. Never mind. What's a cool thing you do? Oh my god. That's basically how that conversation went. Oh, okay. Well, what do you like to do for fun? Yeah. Uh, uh, oh, I said. I thought about explaining my current uh, photographic mystery, but thought I should keep things light. Lately, I've been experimenting a lot with this German philosophy called Gestalt. Not just taking a photo of a bowl of fruit, but of the table on, but of the table it's on, the room it's in, how it's how it all adds up to make one image, like a house at night and the trees behind it and the moon and stars and a mystery glow in the tree. Carter's eyes went up. I'll stop now, I said, feeling more than a little dumb. No, he said softly, shaking his head. It's fascinating. It's cool that you have this secret side. It's not secret, I said, and no offense, but why do you even care? What do you mean? I mean, haven't you heard about me? I'm rude, I'm always in trouble, I skip classes, and none of the teachers like me. Why are we even doing this? Why do you care about any of it? He laughed again, a real, honest laugh. Believe it or not, I care about it because of those things. Oh, right. Opposites attract. I looked around. It's easy to say sitting alone in the library or in a car. What do you mean? Truth be told, I really didn't know what I meant. I mean, we get along great when nobody else is around, but I just can't imagine hanging out in front of other people. He shook his head. Are you kidding me? I'm not afraid of being seen with you in public. Yeah, I'm not afraid of being seen with you in public. Oh, wait, no. I don't think this is a typo. I think this is just how the sentence is structured and it makes sense. But for me, right now, the sentence is, I'm not afraid, in the book it says, I'm not afraid to be seen with you public. That makes sense, but it makes more sense to me, just so it just clicks in better, that it's like, I'm not afraid to be seen with you in public. But I guess I'm not afraid to be seen with you public is also a good, it also makes sense. But for me, I would prefer that in instead. No, it's just public, not publicly. Which makes sense too, but in public would make much more sense. Unless that is a typo. But I think it's supposed, that's like the sentence structure. But yeah, he shook his head. Are you kidding me? I'm not afraid to be seen with you public. I widened my eyes and tried to sound solemn. Well, maybe it's the world that isn't ready for our friendship. He caught my mocking tone and sat back, shaking his head. Suddenly, he brightened and leaned forward. Then let's show the world, he said. It was like a challenge. I don't understand, he said. His eyes flashed. Come to the dance with me Friday. Ooh. The library door could have dropped from under my feet, and I could not possibly have been more surprised than I was at that moment. That is, unless you're the that is, unless you're the one who's afraid to be seen with me, he said. I'm not afraid. I'm not afraid. Yeah, I'm not afraid, he said. Then say yes. Come to the dance with me. My brain was absolutely no help to me at this point, so my gut spoke instead. Okay, fine, I shrugged. If that will make you happy. Yeah, if that will make you happy. He looked straight into my eyes, and I noticed that our heads were so close I could smell his shampoo. The bell rang. Carter moved away quickly and glanced at his watch. Fine, maybe we'll smooch. I don't care. Yep, totally. Yeah, he looked straight into my eyes, and I noticed that our heads were so close I could smell his shampoo. The bell rang. Carter moved away quickly and glanced at his watch. I'll walk you to class? He asked. I hesitated. We'd have to walk right past the Doom Squad. I don't want to cost you any friendships or anything, Carter said smoothly, but his cool voice sounded a little cooler than usual. No, it's fine, I said. I straightened my shoulders. What could they do? Throw their leather bracelets at us? I'll protect you if they attack. He gave a wary smile. We started across the courtyard. I was ready to face the hostel stairs, but I wasn't prepared for what happened as soon as I stepped out. Yeah, I was ready to face the hostel stairs, but I wasn't prepared for what happened as soon as I stepped foot on the bricks. Lydia came Lydia came tearing up to us, looking dismayed. I braced myself for an idiotic comment, but tried to put enough warning in my glare that she wouldn't bother. She didn't notice. Alexis, she said breathlessly. Everyone's looking for you. My heart jumped to my throat. It's your dad, she said. There was an accident. And that is the end of that chapter. I would read this chapter, but I really don't want to. So we're just going to leave it on a cliffhanger. Ghost Dad! Yes. Yes, it is a ghost dad. Definitely. Okay. Well, thank you so much for listening, you guys. I really appreciate it. I will see you in the next. Well, I won't see you soon, but you know the gist. Yeah. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.